So to build this type of animation where we are just basically a kind of highlighting a particular card right here, showing that there's something special about this particular offer right here. So if you take a look at here, we do have like 3 cards right here. This is just like a typical card you could have on a website. Could be pricing cards, could just be maybe listing the products and services that you basically render. And then we have this particular one to display show. That's what we are just kind of shining some lights through it. Okay, so you can go ahead and then use this to make it maybe highlight a particular service or product that you are really rendering, and people can actually see it once they land on your website. All right, I think I hinted on this on the last video that I dropped, telling you that I was going to actually build something of this nature. So let me show you how we can actually put this kind of thing together, and we can have 3 cards laid out with flex direction right here, and then we can actually go ahead and style it to make sure that we use something like our animation to add this particular type of effect to it. So what I want to do is first of all, I want to create a folder for this, which I'm going to just basically put into my YouTube projects right here. So let me create a new folder, and I'm going to just maybe call this something like a lightning or lightning effect, something of that nature. You can call it anything you like. So I do want to open this up with my Visual Studio Code, and that has been opened, and I just basically want to create my first file inside of it, which is just going to be the index.html, and I open that up, and I want to throw in my HTML boilerplate in here, and this is what I've got right here. Let me add a title here, and I'm going to just call this something like lightning, and I'm going to just do animation right here. Now we're going to have a CSS file, so for that reason I want to link to a CSS file right here. We're going to just basically call that something like styles.css, and I'm going to just do href. I think this is really wrong. This is supposed to really be style sheet right here, so I'm going to take this away and then sort that to style sheet. Then once I do href in here, then I can mention the file, which is just basically going to be styles.css, and that should just basically do it on that line. And the next thing I want to basically do is I want to create these cards that we have right here, right? So to do that, if I go back to this environment, I want to first of all, within the body section, I want to create a div that I'm going to just basically call, let's call that something like container. That's just basically going to contain all of those things, those cards in there. So we do have a container in there, and I want to close that out. So this is going to be div to close that. And then within this right here, I should be able to create those cards that I basically want to create. And I want to put them in this. So this is going to be class. You can go ahead and set that to something like animated border. It's just a class name, guys. So, and I want to also give that an extra class right here that I'm going to just basically call it border, right? I mean a box right there, right? Just indicating that it's just basically going to be box. So we need to have like h2 right here, which is basically going to be a title. So I'm going to just basically call this one back, and I'm going to just say development, and I'm going to close that h2 right there. And let's add something like a paragraph in here. So this is going to be P, and we do have that right there. So we're going to need a button down here. So to create a button, we can just do BT double TON right there, and then we can go ahead. Maybe this is, we're going to give this a class so that we can style it differently. So this is going to be class. I'm going to go ahead and set that to be equal to buy now. So let's do that right. That, and then the text that we won't be able to see is actually going to be buy now. All right. So let's go ahead and then close that button right there. I think that just sits in there. Alright, what I want to do, I don't think we created a closing div for this, so we need to do that. I think I'm just basically going to enable autocomplete at a later time, so I don't have to like open and then close all these tags in here. So what I want to do right now is that I want to basically copy this particular div right here, because I think we do have 3 divs in there, and I want to make sure that we kind of get all of them. So right, so paste that one time, and then this is the next one. But what I want to do is to change the information right here, and also change the information and get back to you guys. Alright guys, so I do have those information add that right here. So this is the second one, and then this is the third one right here. Okay, so if we save the changes right here, and let's say we want to basically see that on our browser, so if we open this up and then double click on these, you notice that we do have 3 boxes in here. All right, so this is the former one, and this is the latest one that we're just working on right now. What I want to do is to get into our CSS file and then begin to write some styles for the CSS. So to do that, we want to go ahead and create a CSS file here, which we're going to just basically call styles.css. Now open that up, and you see that it's really opened right here. So I want to first of all work on the body of this page right here, and I'm going to just first of all set the background, and background right there is actually going to be something like a green background, right? So we're going to just set that to green, and then down here we are going to just do something like display, set that to flex. Our viewport height right here, which is just going to be 100 VH right here for viewport. The next one is actually going to be to set the margin, and I want to just basically set it to 0 pixels right there. And then the last thing is to just set the flex direction right here. So I'm going to do flex, and this is going to be direction, and I want to just make sure that I turn that to columns. All right, so if we save the changes and then we'll take a look at the browser right here, let's refresh this. You see that it's just beginning to like really come together, even though it hasn't actually been displayed side by side. And to make sure that it kind of displays the side by side, we need to set the flex direction again in the container div, right? And that's just basically from this particular page where we do have container in here. So if I copy this and we go in here, so this is just basically the container div that we do have on the other page. If we want to work on that, I want to just do display right here, and with that we have, if we save the changes right here, then go back in here, and then we refresh, you see that it's beginning to like keep those items side by side. All right, so let's add more styles to this right here. And that's just basically, for instance, we're going to do just file content right here. I'm going to just copy this line and then paste it right here. This is just going to be just file content center, and after that I want to like set a width to of that particular container, and I'm going to just make this something like 70%. All right, to make that a little bit responsive, and then be able to like bring those items just to the center of this particular web page. You see, and it's also going to create spaces between them, right? And the next thing we basically want to do is to move on to the animated border right here. So we do have a class we call animated border. I want to copy that, and if I go to my CSS, of course it's a class, so we're going to just do that, paste that, which we just copied to the clipboard, and I want to work on that. And the first thing I want to do, I want to set the width of those boxes right there, and I want to just maybe have something like 300 pixels for each of those boxes right there. And after that, I do want to work on the width. Is a width. Now I want to work on the height now, and the height we are going to just basically set out something like 200 pixels. And after we work on that, we set the position of those elements, and I'm going to just basically set this to this is going to be something like relative for me. After that, we're going to set the padding, and the padding that I'm going to give to this is going to just be 20 pixels. And I'm also going to set the box sizing. So if we do box size right here, and when I want to set that to is going to be border box, so we'll go that in there, and after that we'll set the border radius just to curve the edges. So it's going to be border dash radius, and I want to set that to 20 pixels. All right, so we have that in there. And after the border box border radius right here, let's just basically set the typical border in here, which we're going to throw in this right there. And I want to just do 5 pixels, and this is going to be 5 pixels. And you want to set the border type, maybe we're going to just do something like solid in here. And if you want to make that, you can just make it just right about any color in here. If you want to maybe call that something like let's say this is going to be red, just for now I'm going to just set that to red. And then if we save the changes right here and then we refresh, I'm going to see that we do have some borders around it here. These edges are really coming together. I don't want that to like come together. If we go back to this container right here, and then within this container I want to change this from what we have right here. This should be just something like space around. Save the changes, and if we go back in here, yeah, so we now have some spaces around that place. However, if we take a look at it here where we have something like red, that's not basically what I want to make that. I want that to like be transparent. So I'm going to just change that to transparent, and we'll have that in there, right? And the next one I want to do right here is I want to set a background on that particular place. So let's say that the width of those animated border that we're basically going to have is really going to be set to sorry about this. This is, I'm just trying to work on the background right here. So let's say that the background is actually going to be set to white, so this is going to be white right here. And after I do that, we are going to maybe something like gray for now. Let me just set this to something like gray. All right, maybe let's at a later time I'm going to just come back and change that to maybe white, but I want to just like take a look at something from there. Then I'm going to just do background dash clip, so this is going to be clip, and I just basically want to set that to padding box, so this is going to be padding box. And then after that we want to set the overflow, so this is going to be, we're going to have an overflow, and I'm going to just basically hide the overflow. All right, so to do that I'm going to just set that to hidden, and after we do that we can make sure that we move the items or the text that is actually in there. We use text align to center, to be able to center it. All right, So let's make sure we use center right here. I want to terminate this line. And then the last thing I want to do on this right now is to just basically set the margin of that particular section, and then I want to set that to something like 20 pixels for now. So if we save the changes and refresh, let's take a look at what we got so far. And that seems like it's really coming together. And let me change this background right here to, this is going to be, I'm going to just basically set out to white, just like that. All right, even though by the time I'll be working on the boxes itself, I'm going to just bring a color that's just basically going to cover this up at a later time. So that is it. So the next thing I want to do is to just work on the box. So if you take a look in here, you see that we do have extra boxes that we call the box in here. So I want to work on that. So if we do that box, and what we want to do right here, first of all, let me set the background for that. And what I'm going to do with the background right here, let's just call this navy to cover that background that we already got right there. All right, and after that color, after the background, we can set the color of the text to yellow. And with that, if you refresh right now, you're going to see that we do have that covered, and then it looks just like the original right here. Take a look at that, right? So that's just basically what I did and the first one that I did, right? And however, you do not actually even need to like set a background for this right here within this place. So you can just maybe basically take the background away from this particular section right here, all right? In this tool, still just kind of work just fine. And down here, what we want to do next is to go ahead and so if we take a look in here, there is a place where we'll have the animated border right here, right? So I want to use a pseudo element to work on this right here. To do that, I'm going to just do dots, paste that, and I'm going to use before pseudo element in here. So if I do double colon in here, I'm going to just do before. All right, so at first I want to set the content, and I'm going to just basically set it to empty string here. And the next thing I want to do is to position that particular element in there, and I'm going to just basically set this particular one to absolute. So this is going to be absolute, and then after that we're going to set the top, and I'm going to set that to 0, and also we're going to also set the left, set that to 0, and then we're going to set the width, and basically going to set the width right here to 100%. All right, and then after I do that, we also need to set the height, and what I'm going to set the height to is also going to be 100% in there. And then the next thing I want to do is going to be the border, and this is basically going to be the border radius. So I'm going to do radius right here. I'm going to set the radius right here to something like 15 pixels. So right here I just do 15 pixels, and then the next thing is going to be the pointer. Let's set the pointer events, and go ahead and set out something like none. All right, okay, so we do have that right there. So the next thing, of course, if you save the changes right now and then you refresh, you won't actually see any serious changes in here yet. And what I want to do next, let me just basically go ahead and then I kind of style the buy now button, which is just basically this particular class right here. So if we go back in here and I want to do a dot and then paste that. All right, so I just want to paste the style for the button right here. So if I paste this and I'll scroll a little bit down so you can see everything. So this is just the style for that of the button right here, just setting the background, then the color of the text to black, and then of course you understand the rest of the things that we got right here. All right, so if you save the changes, refresh, see that the button has just come together, right? All right, so with that, we do have our card laid out the way that we basically would like it to be, and I think it looks just beautiful. So the next thing I want to do is we're going to use as keyframe to be able to maybe select one of the cards that we have in here and then add that lightning effect to it. And to do that, first of all, I want to work using working on our add keyframe right here. Right, so if you want to work on animation on that of the CSS, you use add keyframes. All right, so I'm going to just do add keyframes right here, and I want to name the frame that I want to use. So this is going to be move dash something like light. All right, so this is just the name that I'm just giving to that right here. Then we can throw in our curly brackets in here, and the first thing I want to work on right here at 0%, I want to just put a 0% right here. What I want the keyframe to do is really going to be very simple. So I want it to like transform by the X angle. So if we do something like transform right here, and what we want to do is to just say something like translate, and this is going to be through the through the X angle right there, or coordinates, right? And what we basically want this to do is for add something like minus 100 right here, and let's go ahead and terminate this line. And from there, what I basically want it to do is to move to that of the 100%, and I want that to also translate from that particular field right there. So if we throw in our curly brackets in here, and what I want to do is to make sure that, so if I copy this right here and I get into this particular place, paste that, and I want this like to also translate through the same angle right there to 100% in there. All right, so I'm going to change this to 100%. And remember that the first value right here also needs to have a percentage within that particular place, all right? So with this, even if you save the changes and then refresh the web page in here, we don't actually see anything yet. And if we get down here, what we want to do, basically want to make sure that we are able to add that effect to maybe the one at the center right here. For that reason, I think we're going to just basically have what is it called, we're going to basically have an extra class right here so that we can actually target that particular one and then give it whatever class, whatever style that we want it to just like basically have. So I'm going to just do center dash, maybe something like box right here, or you can just name it whatever you want. All right, so I'm going to just basically copy this, and that's just basically what I want to use. So let's save the changes in here, and once we get in here, we want to go ahead and then I want to put a comment in here. First of all, I'm going to just do maybe just basically say something like apply. All right, so we do have apply the lightning effect to only the center box right here, and what we want to do right here, this is going to be a class. So I'm going to just do dot center box right here, and I'm going to use pseudo class element right here, right? So we'll just do before, and then within this curly brackets right here, this is just basically where we want to go ahead and then specify the type of background that we're basically going to use. All right, so this is just basically going to be a linear gradient type of a background, which I'm going to just copy and paste the code right here because it's actually quite a bit of code. I don't want to make any mistakes in here, so let me just get the code and then put it right there. All right, so I do have that copied to the clipboard. I want to go ahead and paste that right here, and if you take a look at that, it's not really too much to kind of understand. So we're setting the linear gradient background right here. So this is an angle of 120 degrees, and then we're setting an RGBA, which is just red. This is going to be green, and this is going to be actually blue for primary colors. And then the A that we have right here is just for opacity. All right, so we're just setting the values in here and then setting the opacity to 0. So but then at 25%, we want to be able to change that to the values that we have in here. But then at 50%, we'll set it to the value that we have in here. All right, so that's just basically what that is actually doing for us within that particular place, guys. So the next thing I want to do right here, if we save the changes and then we'll take a look at that, the browser, you're going to notice that we're going to just basically have that lightning effect go through the third element like right here, or the third card that we have in here, but that will not actually be moving. All right, so if you want to make sure that that kind of moves, you need to like set the animation. So if you go back in here and you want to set the animation, so let's do that right here. So we're going to just do animation. What we want to do is to set the value. First of all, we want to grab onto the name of the animation, and which is just this particular thing in here. So go into the add keyframe and then copy the animation name, paste it right here, and then I want to go ahead and begin to give it whatever values you want it to be. So I want that, like if you want it to like maybe be moving within 3 seconds, you do 3 seconds right here, and you can do the type of animation you want. I want it to be something like linear, and you can do infinite for it to continue. All right, if you want that to like continuous, like going through that particular place. Okay, so every 3 seconds you're going to see that it lies through it. So let's save the changes in here, and if we go back to our browser and then refresh, you notice that that begins to move, right? So every 3 seconds it moves. If you want that to move faster, you can change the value maybe to something like maybe 2 seconds. Save that. You can also use 1 second if you want to do that, depending on how much you want to, how much time you have. All right. So even if you want that to be something like maybe every 1 second, it's just speed the stuff up right there. So it's just going to be passing through that particular screen. That's what is happening in there, right? So about I want to set that to something like 3 seconds right here. So I'm taking that back 3 seconds, and if we refresh, you see that it's actually moving slowly, and after every 3 seconds it completes, and then another one actually it kind of begins. All right, so if you take this infinite that we do have right here, you take it away, it's actually gonna, once you refresh, it's gonna light just once. Look at what is gonna happen, and then it will stop. All right, so with that infinite, you want it to like continue repeating itself. That's why we added infinite right there. And I hope that you guys kind of understand the video. If you do, just feel free to hit the like button, and feel free to subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube, and if you're on Facebook, you can hit the follow button. And I think that I will see you guys in the next one, and hopefully you're going to use this to do something useful. If you have an information that you want people to like catch once they get into your website, you can use something of this nature to really kind of grab their attention. So thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.